I'm sitting here and I'm looking down. I already started the video like a couple times and I just got a little bit of stage fright, y'all. But I'm sitting here looking at my toes and my toes are tattooed. They say Gypsy Child across all 10 of them. And the foot I'm looking at says Gypsy. And lately I've been thinking a lot about my nomadic style of living. Where I am stationary at right now is not a place that I'm super happy to be. And that unhappiness has definitely been increasing, especially over the heaviness of this Mercury retrograde. If you know, you know. But I was gonna start off the video saying I wonder how different my life would be if I hadn't experienced so much trauma and difficulty and just such an extremely different childhood than a lot of people. And I'm not comparing, because there are definitely, I've had a lot of friends who have had much more difficult childhoods in a lot of ways, and perhaps even saying that though is undermining how difficult mine also was. But I've been thinking a lot about gypsy living and going back into that. And the big consideration I've had, I guess that's the word, has been around how different my nomadic living would be if I wasn't as screwed up as I am, if I hadn't been as broken by life as I have been. Like, maybe I would have a bigger vehicle at this point, 6-7 years later after beginning the journey, and I'm still pretty much, for the most part, living in the same exact vehicle, except when I'm stationary at whatever place that I'm currently stationary at. And for years it's been this dream of a van or a bus or to pull a trailer, anything bigger than what I have. And now I'm sitting at a place in life where I'm about to enter back in and get back out onto the road again. And I feel so disappointed in myself for a lot of things. I think especially the older you get, the more your flaws become impossible to ignore. Like, your demons become impossible to ignore. I feel like once you reach your 30s, people really start holding you to a certain standard, and I don't think I'm ever gonna really meet that standard. And if I do, that's probably long after some of those people are no longer a part of my life anymore. I think that I have a different standard that I personally live by in life, while also having extremely high standards of me. And I think that that adds to feeling a lot like a failure in a lot of ways in life. But going back to kind of thinking about how different it might be if I hadn't been through this negative, hurtful things in my past, I also wonder if I would even be a nomad, a gypsy, whatever term that you want to use. I'm comfortable with all of them as long as you're not using it in a rude, belittling kind of manner. Maybe I wouldn't even live like this, because a huge part of the reason that I am nomadic, a huge part of the reason that I enjoy living out of my car and such a rugged lifestyle has been largely due to the trauma that I've been through, as well as to the childhood, like the very specific, unique childhood that I went through. My parents were Pentecostal missionaries in Japan, where I was born, and I lived till I was 8. In America, when we moved here, I grew up traveling through all the states because my dad was visiting churches and with all of us. So I have a very, very unique childhood. And if I hadn't gone through all of that, I don't think that I would even be the person that I am today. Like, without the negative parts, but also without a lot of the positive parts. Without a lot of the parts that are some of the aspects that I love the most about myself. Perhaps those are some of the aspects that people don't get to see as much at this point in my life, because the past couple years have just been kind of ruthless to my mental health. And I already struggled a ton with that in my nomadic gypsy years, living out my forerunner, as well as before that when I was just living in Sacramento. I just, I felt really conflicted lately about certain things going on in my life and the direction that I'm choosing to take next. And I've reached a point where I feel at peace about what I've chosen, and I'm sure of it, even though at times there are definitely these like waves of doubt and anxiety and fear. And it's crazy because it's like I've done this so many times at this point. I've moved around so much over the past like 6.5 years, and yet it's still so nerve-wracking every time I'm about to get back into moving somewhere new or somewhere that I've been before. But I'm so glad that I have the experience at this point to know that even though I'm not in the best mental space right now and I'm not feeling too good about myself or about my life, I'm feeling a lot of hurt around multiple things going on in my life, which can make me feel even more insecure and more anxious about the future. But at the same time, it's like, okay, hey, it's gonna be okay. And if I feel like I am being directed to take another leap of faith, it's gonna work out. Maybe it's not gonna work out the way I want or plan. That kind of seems to be the case a lot of the time, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I am still looking forward to the day. I can't say that. I want to say that I'm still looking forward to the day when it turns out better than I expected, but I have had lots of those. I have had many, many of those days. I think that I'm just feeling really down on myself right now and how my life is looking, but I also have noticed that there is a certain pattern, and perhaps this is my pattern. This does not necessarily mean that this is going to apply to you, but in my life, sometimes where there is a massive amount of collapse and loss that perhaps not immediately, but at some point is followed by this beautiful rise out of it. The phoenix vibes, but more positive than just like the phoenix, which the phoenix, that's transformational energy. It's the rise out of the ashes, out of the decay. But I think that there's also another aspect of that that's like the rise into something even better, something more glorious, that it's not just who you are, but the environment that you're rising into, the environment that you're able to enter into. I feel like I'm just kind of ranting, but yeah, guys, this is just kind of my thoughts tonight, and I finally felt like sharing again after like a month of disappearing. Maybe a couple months. I don't know exactly how long it's been, but if, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I actually took down, I kind of basically took down my YouTube channel, and I honestly considered never posting on here again and never putting my videos back up again. I basically made everything, just everything I posted, completely private. And a few days ago, I was like, you know what? It's time to open this back up. And now that I'm like thinking on it, I can kind of see why, because even though I'm in this place of feeling a lot of destruction around me and a lot of hurt and in some ways and at certain times hopelessness and just a lot of crying. I've been crying a lot. Even though it's kind of a dark period, there is like this hope rising back out of it because of imminent changes amongst the already changes. That I think that to know that I don't have to be stuck in this place, literally and metaphysically. I don't have to be stuck in this place, and a lot of my creative shutdown, I feel, has actually stemmed from being out here. And I don't think that it started off from being out here. I think I was already in a bad place when I moved from where I was living and bartending in Arizona to live with my dad and stepmom in Nevada. I was already in such a bad mental space. I had been in the psych hospital again for suicidal ideations with plan and just not in a good fucking space. And then it was like I got really hopeful and it seemed like things got better, and then things crashed really, really, really badly again. And then they just kind of continued crashing. So I've just kind of felt in a dark space out here for a little while now. And I would like to get to the point, because I do recognize that there is this type of pattern in my life around this going to a new place, feeling really good, and then destruction. Which I do think I think it goes hand in hand with my nomadic style of living, but it helps that I enjoy this nomadic style of living, because it seems that these places that I often go to end up being really toxic for me for whatever reason. Oftentimes it is actually because of like the people and the relationships that I've had in my life. I don't really take relationship, and I don't just mean romantic. Most of my relationship endings have been around friends. Like, I value my friends more than gold. They are just the most important people in my life, with my family and my dogs. And losing friends and having endings or realizing that it's toxic and having to walk away, it always breaks my heart and makes me really, really sad for a while, to be honest. There are some endings that it's like I feel a lot better after that. Like, I know I made the right choice, but then there are other endings where it's just like, it just breaks you. Even if it is the right choice, it doesn't necessarily feel good that it's over. And that's one of the cycles that I've been really trying to correct and just redirect myself in around the people that I choose to have in my life. And it's not that I just only choose the wrong people or only toxic people. I actually choose really wonderful people really consistently. And I have chosen a lot of like bad choice to have that person in your life, bad choice to date them, bad choice to be as close to that person, just some bad choices in people. But I have also made like choices that I'm like, I look at them and I think, you were a really good choice. But people change and people shift and dynamics shift. People go down different paths. Sometimes you just grow apart from each other. Sometimes it's not necessarily that either of you is a toxic or bad person, but Perhaps your relationship can become toxic if you are going down the wrong path and maybe you're just not seeing each other clearly. Sometimes you can work through that, and sometimes perhaps it's just not meant, and perhaps it's time to go separate paths. But yeah, that's how I feel like a lot of my relationships have been. And I'm glad that I'm talking about this because, to be honest, I have been just like bullying the shit out of myself over just feeling like everybody in life that I choose that has broken my heart is just like, I just have the worst picker in the world and I just always pick the worst people. And so every time that I get my heart broken, it's just because it's all my own fault because I'm not smart enough to pick the right people to have in my life. And now that I think about it, sometimes it's just like, sometimes the people that things end with, it's just because it became toxic. It doesn't mean that they were toxic or that I was. We probably both had toxic behaviors. Let's be real. If you're friends with me, you're probably kind of also screwed up to a certain degree. Like, let's just be real, guys. We probably relate to each other because of how fucked up we have become to a certain level or heal it, whatever, okay? So it's nice. It's just actually nice to brainstorm while talking to my little handy dandy YouTube channel because it's making me realize that I have been way too hard on myself over having the people in my life not always turn out to be lifers. Most of them aren't lifers. At this point in my life, there are people that I can think of right now that I feel like there is a very healthy dynamic between us. I also think that we're not like excruciatingly close. And I could see, as long as that dynamic stays healthy, I could definitely see those being lifers. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know the trajectory of my life or their life or what's gonna happen, or something could happen and we could butt heads, you know, that anything can happen, but it doesn't mean that I'm just the worst. It doesn't mean that I'm just the fucking worst. And I shouldn't just hate on myself for that, so I think I should probably take that a little bit easy because I've been bullying myself bad. Like, really bad. I think I needed the reality check of being like, girl, you cannot. You gotta make wiser choices. Especially wiser choices with people. But at the same time, I think that I need to acknowledge that I have actually chosen some really beautiful people. Really, honestly, fucking dope ass people in my life. And a lot of them I'm not friends with anymore. And that we were really good friends to each other while we were. And then maybe it hit the fan and both of us were stopped being good friends to each other, or one or the other, I don't know. Or maybe we just fell apart. I feel like I kind of took a loop and I remember what I was like talking about, but I don't really, I'm like, why did I come, why am I talking about this now? Other than the fact that it's been what's been on my mind. So maybe that's just it. Maybe this is the end. Maybe I just need to say all this. Make a little loop. So I could work through that and be like, Willow, be nicer to yourself. You're being a bully to you. And just because other people bully you does not mean that you get to bully you. Girl. Girl. Okay. I'm glad I got that off my chest. But yeah, if you guys are still here, like some of my dedicated I have been going through all of my belongings and purging. yet again. And not just doing like a monthly purge, get rid of the stuff that you don't value or use type of thing, like I've talked about in other videos, like a deep purge. Like a deep purge. Like an enema of my belongings. And my spirit, I guess. And my emotions, shit, okay. Yeah, and I think I've gotten it down to the point where there's nothing else that I really want to get rid of. I think that everything I have is something that I want to keep and take with me. And that's all that I'm gonna say for now. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you want to. Would be rad if you did. But yeah, I love you guys, and I believe in you. And I hope that you have an amazing and beautiful day. And I hope that I sleep tonight, because I did not sleep yesterday and just basically had panic attacks for hours. Here's to a better night's sleep.